This project really was a labor of love. I knew my mother was going to get rid of my childhood piano, the piano she's had in the house since she bought it new in 1974. A wonderful baby grand that I grew up playing. My brother grew up playing. So I decided, after discovering the Piano Book website, that I wanted to try to sample the piano and be able to play it anytime, and then if my mother gets a MIDI keyboard, to allow her to plug in her laptop and be able to play that sound. In the end, it's not exactly like the original. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. I borrowed some mics, used some of my drum mics. The overheads are what ended up being used. SE Electronics SE8s in a stereo pair over the hammers, actually. But you'll see from the videos that I used quite a few mics. I may eventually release a version that has more layers and some sliders to let you choose which mic to use to change the tone. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I used what's called a monolith template, and it had timings already preset to start and stop the notes.
A3 and
but it seemed like they were shorter than they could have been. And checking a spreadsheet that was also with the monolith templates, it looked like the template I used was much shorter than what the spreadsheet listed. So in my attempt to remedy that, I used Melodyne and stretched the notes out, stretched the ends of the notes out longer and faded them out. They're still a little short, but they're longer than they would have been. They were only maybe 10 to 12 seconds, and now they're more like 17, 18 seconds on the long ones. And I did quite a bit of noise reduction. I was sitting in her living room recording this, and turns out they were rehabbing a house across the street. So it got pretty noisy at times, and there were a few bangs and thunks. And the bench I was on creaked, or the pedal creaked. So I used iZotope RX9 to remove some of that stuff and to generally clean up the sound. I started out with the monolith template, which uses one single recording, one single wave file, and then there was a template for Kontakt, which then uses that. But the Kontakt template seemed like it was probably made for what was supposed to be the original Logic template. As I said, mine came up and the notes were a little short. So I would play a note in Kontakt and it would actually play two notes because the length of the sample was longer than it should have been. At that point, that's when I ended up extending the notes using Melodyne and decided to just build it from scratch in Kontakt. So I still used a lot of the scripting in Kontakt, so the layers were still there, so I didn't have to learn how to make sure the pedals worked and the release triggers and all that. Some wonderful people from Piano Book tested that, and then I created a decent sampler version, and then more recently I created the Logic sampler version, which doesn't have an interface because the Logic sampler doesn't have like pretty instrument interfaces. But I was able to find a script online and use this little plugin called the Scripter, which I didn't even know about, to make the pedal sounds work. And then realized that I could do a multi-output sampler so that it has 3 channel strips, one for the regular notes and then one for the pedal and one for the release triggers. So that's kind of handy. I included that in the Logic version. It's been well received. I really am surprised at how many downloads it's had, and just the overall reception has been great. I love playing it. I still pull it up. Sometimes I'll just sit in the dark and play it because it just sounds wonderful to me. It's still got enough, even though I cleaned it quite a bit, it's still got enough personality. It doesn't sound like a pristine, perfectly sampled, electronicized, whatever, commercial piano. And I love that about it. It's got some character. And and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.